Um, it's a real small organ. It's small inside until a baby starts growing, and then it stretches to hold the baby and a lot of fluid. So it's real elastic. It's composed of two parts. One's the upper portion, one's the lower portion. The lower portion is called the cervix, and the rounded upper part is called the fundus. When you start doing OB clinicals, you'll massage the fundus and all that stuff. Anyway, they've probably, if you've had children, they've massaged your fundus too. Okay, so the uterus functions in three processes. You need to underline this or highlight it or whatever you want to do. Menstruation, pregnancy, and labor. The corpus luteum stops secreting progesterone and decreases its secretion of estrogens about 11 days after ovulation. About 3 days later, when the progesterone and estrogen concentrations in the blood are at their lowest, then menstruation starts. Small pieces of the endometrium break loose, and it pulls loose. It brings a little blood and some tissue with it, and that's what your menstrual cycle is made of. Immediately after menstruation, the endometrium starts to repair itself. It again grows thick and becomes lavishly supplied with blood in preparation for pregnancy. So if fertilization doesn't occur, then the uterus again sheds the lining, and so it's this cycle, and that's why they call it a menstrual cycle. It says it first occurs at puberty, often around the age of 11 to 12. Normally the cycle repeats about every 28 days or 13 times a year, for some 30 to 40 years before it ceases at menopause, which usually happens around 50. I know that 28 days is an arbitrary number. Not everybody has a 28-day cycle. They just use that in this book to keep it simple, okay, so that everybody can learn it in the same way. The vagina is a distensible tube, about 10 centimeters long, made mainly of smooth muscle and lined with mucous membrane. It lies in the pelvic cavity between the urinary bladder and the rectum. Underline that. We talked about the perineum, right, between the vagina and the anus, and now we've got the vagina is between the urinary bladder and the rectum. Okay. Accessory glands, vestibular glands. Two pairs of exocrine glands lie embedded in tissue to the left and right of the vaginal outlet and release mucus fluid into the vestibule of the vulva. One pair of these small glands are called the greater vestibular glands, and the other are called the lesser vestibular glands. The greater are also called Bartholin glands, and the lesser are called Skene's glands or female prostate. These become important because they can get infected easily with gonorrhea and chlamydia, the two most prolific STDs, STIs. All right, breasts. Okay. Breast size is determined more by the amount of fat tissue around the glandular milk-secreting tissue than by the amount of glandular tissue itself. Hence, the size of the breast has little to do with the ability to secrete adequate amounts of milk after the birth of a baby. So women with small breasts can still produce a lot of milk. Makes no difference. Okay, each breast consists of 15 to 20 divisions or lobes that are arranged radially. There's a good diagram on page 474 of the construction of the breast. What you need to know is the milk is formed and it goes in a spoke-like fashion towards the nipple, which makes the milk be excreted. You need to write this in your margin. Prolactin produces the milk, and oxytocin causes release of the milk. And students get that confused all the time, even though I tell them just like I'm telling you. So prolactin makes it, oxytocin releases it. Small lactiferous ducts drain the alveoli and converge toward the nipple like the spokes of a wheel. Only one lactiferous duct leads from each lobe to an opening in the nipple. The colored surface around the nipple is the areola, and that's how you say that, areola. It contains many tiny bumps called areolar glands. Areolar glands are large sebaceous glands that secrete skin oils that condition the skin while nursing an infant. External genitals. The external genitalia of women consists of several structures collectively called the vulva. These include mons pubis, clitoris, external urinary meatus, labia minora, hymen, openings of vestibular gland ducts, orifice of the vagina, and labia majora. The mons pubis is a skin-covered pad of fat over the symphysis pubis. Pubic hair appears on this mound of fat and skin at puberty and persists throughout life. Extending downward from the elevated mons pubis are the labia majora, literally large lips. If you ever hear me say large lips, slap me. I just don't like that term. Labia majora, okay. These elongated folds, which are composed mainly of fat tissue and glands, are covered with pigmented skin and pubic hair on the outer surface and are smooth and free from hair on the inner surface. The labia minora, literally the small lips, are nestled medially between the labia majora and are covered with thin skin. These two small lips join anteriorly at the midline. And you can see that on this diagram. If you read and look at the diagram at the same time. The space between the labia minora is the vestibule. Several genital structures are located in the vestibule. The glans, or head of the clitoris, which is composed of erectile tissue similar to that found in the penis, is located just behind the anterior junction of the labia minora. The deeper erectile tissue of the clitoris branches into two bulbs, one of which can be seen under a labium majus, I don't know how to say that, in the cutaway on a right side of the specimen. Situated between the glans clitoris and the vaginal opening is the external urethral meatus. It talks about the hymen, that is a little thin piece of tissue and as active as women are today. You usually can't see it or it's gone, whatever. The term perineum is used to describe the area between the vaginal opening and the anus. This area is sometimes cut in a surgical procedure called an episiotomy to open up the vagina more so that big fat babies can exit without tearing. Okay. Okay, the menstrual cycle. So we're going to use the 28-day, okay? The first indication of changes comes with the first menstrual period. The first menses, or menstrual flow, is referred to as the menarche. You need to know those terms, okay? A typical menstrual cycle covers a period of about 28 days. However, the length of the cycle varies among women, and it'll vary within one woman. She may have 28 days this month, 30 the next. So phases. Each cycle consists of 3 phases. The 3 periods of time in each cycle are called the menses, the proliferative phase, and the secretory phase. Refer to figure 21-15. I love this diagram, and this is why I teach this chapter from this book. It's color-coded. It's clear. The paper is good, the whole thing. And so the proliferative phase is on the left. You got me? The secretory phase is on the right. If you see right at the bottom of this diagram, it says that. The line down the middle is ovulation, okay? So the proliferative phase is before and the secretory phase is after. All right. As a general rule, during the 30 or 40 years that a woman has periods, only one of them matures each month. However, there are exceptions to this rule. Some months more than one matures, and some months no ovum matures at all. Ovulation occurs 14 days before the next menses begins. In a 28-day cycle, this means that ovulation occurs around day 14. In a 30-day cycle, however, ovulation would not occur on the 14th day, but instead on the 16th. In a 25-day cycle, it could happen anywhere. Yeah, so you can't count on that day 14 if you're trying not to get pregnant. There's another way to look at this, and that's figure 21-14 on page 476. It also gives you the 28-day cycle broken down into two halves. I just find this diagram on page 477 easier to follow. All right, so the time of ovulation has great practical importance because the possibility of fertilization, the fusion of sperm and egg, can occur only during a short period of time during each menstrual cycle. Although a few super sperm may remain viable for up to 5 days, most sperm retain their fertilizing power for only 24 to 72 hours after being deposited in the female reproductive tract. The oocyte remains viable and capable of being fertilized for only about 12 to 24 hours after ovulation. So 24 hours is basically that target, right? He's fertile the sperm is viable for 24 to 72, but the ova's only viable for 12 to 24. So I think of 24 as being the magical number. Okay, control of the menstrual cycle. The anterior pituitary gland plays a critical role in regulating the cyclic changes that characterize the functions of the female reproductive system. As noted earlier, secretion of GnRH from the hypothalamus stimulates the anterior pituitary gland to secrete both FSH and LH. If you look at the top of the diagram on page 477, it shows the hypothalamus and then it shows the pituitary gland. The anterior pituitary is what's secreting the LH and FSH. Without those two, you couldn't be pregnant. A high blood concentration of FSH stimulates several immature ovarian follicles to start growing and secreting estrogen, okay? If you think of FSH, follicle-stimulating hormone, that's exactly what it's doing. It's stimulating these follicles, okay? Working together, increasing levels of estrogen and GnRH in the blood stimulate the anterior pituitary gland to release increasing amounts of LH, and LH causes maturing of a follicle and its ovum, ovulation, and luteinization from the ruptured follicle. So then it gives you this little trick question, and it doesn't make any sense to me, but it says, which hormone, FSH or LH, would you call the ovulating hormone? Do you think ovulation could occur if the blood concentration of FSH remained low throughout the menstrual cycle? If you answered LH to the first question, and I always get it wrong, and no to the second, you answered both questions correctly. So I'll let you study that yourself because I get it wrong. Okay, ovulation cannot occur if the blood level of FSH stays low. That is a test question. Because a high concentration of this hormone is essential to stimulation of ovarian follicle growth and maturation. So if it's low, you can't get pregnant. With a low level of FSH, no follicles start to grow, and therefore none become ripe enough to ovulate. Ovulation is caused by the combination of actions of FSH and LH. Birth control pills that contain estrogen substances suppress FSH secretion. This indirectly prevents ovulation. All right. So then it gives you a summary of the reproductive system. If you look at table 21-3, it gives you the analogous features of the reproductive system. So it kind of compares male and female, and they are kind of the same. And then the next part is pronunciation. I want y'all to look at those. Then it gives you an outline summary. These outline summaries are really good. You know, in the other book, when I said go to the back of the chapter and look at the key points, this kind of cuts all this malarkey down to something you can understand. Do y'all want to do this quiz in the back of this chapter? I've got mine filled out. I bet you don't. Marilia, in the online book, does it have the chapter test in the back of each chapter? Like the last page of each chapter?
Yes, we have questions, yes.
Okay. So I'm going to go through these. You can write the answers in if it'll help you study. The essential organs of the male reproductive system are the testes or the gonads. Number 2, the pouch-like sac where the male gonads are located is called the scrotum. Number 3, the membrane that covers the testicle and also divides the interior into lobes is called the tunica albuginea. The seminiferous tubule is a long duct in the testicle where sperm develop. That's not the epididymis where it's a 20-foot long, tightly coiled, blah, 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 right? The interstitial are the cells in the testes that secrete testosterone, interstitial cells. The primary spermatocyte develops from a cell called the spermatogonia. Number 7, the primary spermatocyte forms sperm cells by undergoing a specialized type of cell division called meiosis. Doesn't have a T in it, meiosis. All right, number 8, the sperm cell contains an acrosome, which contains an enzyme that can digest the covering of the ovum. The epididymis is a reproductive duct that consists of a tightly coiled tube that lies along the top and behind the testes. The prostate is a gland that secretes a thin milk-colored fluid that makes up about 20% of the seminal fluid. The seminal vesicles are a pair of glands that produce a thick, yellowish, fructose-rich fluid that makes up about 60% of the seminal fluid. The penis is composed of 3 columns of erectile tissue. One is called the corpus spongiosum, and the other 2 are called corpora, C-O-R-P-O-R-A, cavernosa. 14, the essential organs of the female reproductive system are the ovaries, or the gonads. 15, another name for a mature ovarian follicle is a Graafian follicle. G-R-A-A-F-I-A-N. The process that produces the female gamete is called oogenesis. Meiosis in the female produces 1 large ovum and 3 small daughter cells called polar bodies, which degenerate. I think they're on that. Oh, I see a cattail on the screen there. Carolyn, is that your baby?
Yeah, you're going to see something else if I don't block her.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
Oh, no.
Block her.
Yeah, I will. Believe me, no one wants to see that.
Yeah,
It means
I
she
don't.
likes you all, though.
Okay, so I didn't mention the polar bodies, but they're shown in that diagram somewhere. When it's talking about the cell division. Here we are. At the bottom of page 471, right down along the bottom, it shows the polar bodies. And we don't have to go into those. I just didn't want you to think I didn't know. Okay, the fallopian tubes are the reproductive tubes connecting the ovary and the uterus. The muscle layer of the uterus is called the myometrium. The uterus is composed of two parts, the upper part called the body, and the narrow lower part called the cervix. The innermost layer of the uterus, which is shed during menstruation, is called the endometrium. The vagina is the part of the female reproductive system that opens to the exterior. The vestibular glands are glands that secrete a mucus-like lubricating fluid into the vestibule. 24, the milk-secreting glandular cells of the breast are arranged in grape-like structures called alveoli. These drain into lactiferous ducts that converge toward the nipple. I get that right. All right, so I didn't do the matching thing over here. I'll let y'all do that. I'm not going to. All right, so it's 3 o'clock. What time am I supposed to keep y'all till? Come on, somebody can.
Or 3 o'clock.
Yeah, 3 o'clock is the right answer, Carolyn. Thank you. All right, so we will pick up with chapter 22 next, okay? That's when
So,
we get.
Ms. White, we'll see you again Tuesday then, right?
What happens on?
Because
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
assuming that Ms. Meredith don't teach Monday after our dosage stuff.
yeah, I'm going to.
Okay.
I think we can finish this up.
No, what I'm asking is, are you going to be teaching Monday or her? Because did y'all switch? Isn't she going to be the teacher on Monday after the dosage exam? Or are you still
No, I'm
going to
doing
be teaching?
both. I'm going to proctor the dosage and the math thing for some.
Right.
I think we're going to split.
Okay. I guess I was under the impression that on Monday she was going to be teaching since she didn't teach today.
Oh, is that what she said? She didn't tell me that part.
I could, unless I was reading it wrong, that's what I took from it.
Yeah, she sent the message saying that she'll be.
Okay. I thought I would. Okay, thank you.
So she's going to do the math thing and then teach?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we'll have our dosage thing, and I think she's going to teach Monday because that's probably why she had you teach today, so she can take your Monday because she's already extra behind.
So everyone thinks we are definitely going in Monday to take that exam?
Yeah, I think so. I think if not, she'll tell us otherwise, but she's still saying that it's a go.
Okay.
I was trying to look at her telephone message that she sent me a while ago. Okay, so she says, I was to lecture this afternoon on